What's going on, guys? Gabe with seodorks, and as promised, this is a day trading video that is going to make you a better trader. Also, in this playlist, we have 18 other videos that when you put it all together, guess what? You will be a better trader today than you have been a whole entire year waiting for AMC to moon. Now, the equity is cost. Why? It was a runner, and you know what? People like to chase runners because they're saying, I'm going to take my profits and throw it back into AMC. Yada, yada, yada. All right, cool. If this is what you do on a daily basis, I want to make sure you're not getting burned. And I want to make sure that you're not holding the bag. In this lesson, we're going to focus on moving averages, in particular, the 200 and the 50 EMA. Let's look at cost here because it ran up. It had no news, absolutely none. So we knew it was a pump and dump. Now, we're in the daily. Why in the daily? Because we're going to use different time frames to confirm that the equity is in fact trading above the 200 EMA. On the daily, we have confirmation. 4 hour, we have confirmation. 2 hour, confirmation. 1 hour, the same. 30 minutes, the same. 15 minutes, right here, yes. Still above the 200 EMA. Keep in mind, we are recording in the present, but when I was doing my analysis, the price action was well above the 200 EMA. So let's go ahead and break down the anatomy of this trade and how I use the moving averages and support and resistance to enter my trades and exit my trades with confidence. All right, we are back in the daily. And what I like to do is look for recent points of resistance. Why? Because we just broke something and we want to find out what we broke, guys. So we look for resistance where 3 points are touching and we find something right here. So this is an area of interest here and we're going to get that down there. We have multiple touching points and we are good. So we have our resistance plotted here. We could see that cost has been rejected previously at this point. So what do? Now we go back to the minute chart and we watch how the equity plays out. Now, before you even enter a play, you want to have a plan. So here I had a plan. I was going to enter a trade at some point after a retracement and I was going to exit at 21.50. We find out as I entered at 19.25, I had the expectation that I was going to make $2.25. But guys, this also proves another point, and this is why I do not do a Discord or an alert group, because the market is a moving target, and you have to be nimble, and you have to be able to think on your feet. So, what happened? Cost, acting as a pump and dump it dipped below the 200 and the 50 EMA. But look where it came to. It came all the way down at or about to support. Now, I entered this trade at 19.25. I said, okay, now's the time to go. Now, we got confirmation from the RSI and the MACD. We had a crossover with the MACD over the signal line. That is a bullish signal to me. And we got confirmation with the RSI breaking to the upside. I would have normally exited this trade at 20.37 because we reached the 50 EMA. But I said, screw it. I already had my stop loss at 19.45. We were going to see how far this thing could go. It broke through, but then it ended retracing. So that was my first clue that price action was not as strong as we were led to believe. And of course, this happens every single time with pump and dumps. So I ended up getting stopped out at 19.45. And that's fine because we see the equity come all the way back down to 1908. I entered this trade, I believe, at 1913. If we go ahead and look at my log here, I entered at 1913 and ended up getting stopped out at 1972. And that is at or about this area here. Again, right along the 50 EMA. So the equity was playing previous support resistance as support and then was using the 50 EMA as resistance. Typically, what you see equities do is play along these support and resistance lines. So the 50 EMA acts as support and resistance, the 200 EMA acts as support and resistance. And normally what people like to see is when an equity breaks one area, like here, the 50 EMA, it wants to see it attempt to retest the 200 EMA. And that's normally how you would play it. But again, the market is a very dynamic, breathing machine. I had to be nimble. Instead of hitting a home run with my expectation of $2.25, which I expected to profit, which would have equated to $2,250. I then had to go ahead, take that step back, because I did realize that the equity was in a downward trend. It really didn't have that oomph it needed to continue the move to the upside. So I had to hit the RBIs. And when everything was said and done with, I made a profit of 79 cents between both plays and or $790. And for me, that was still a win. I keep things very, very relative, and I keep things in perspective. Dollars an hour. You would have to work 40 hours to make $800. So something like this, making that kind of money in mere minutes before lunch, hey, I call it a day. I call it a wrap. What this also means, guys, is keep your expectations in check. Not everything goes to the moon, and not everything is what it seems. This looked like a stock that might have broken out, but it was a pump and dump. And unfortunately for the guy who entered here and didn't enter with a stop loss of 40 or 60 cents, they ended up taking a loss or holding the bag. They should have taken the 40-cent loss here and looked for an entry here at 1786 because it broke below the 50 EMA. But again, what do equities like to do? They like to ride EMAs. So if you entered at 1786, you would have made out at 1876 with a 60% profit after the 40-cent loss. You got to keep that in mind, right? It doesn't have to be home runs all the time, and you don't have to constantly hold the bag, and you don't have to average down like your peers are telling you. Your peers are telling you average down, average down, average down. I have to ask you something. When you're hearing that on the, the chats and on the Weebles, et cetera, are those really people or are those bots? Hey, never know. Anyways, this is Gabe. I hope you learned something. Check out the other 18 videos in this playlist. Put it all together. You're going to learn more in these 19 videos than you probably have over the past 10 months holding AMC. You know what we do here, baby. Cokes and Hookers, National Sarcastic Society here, baby. Peace.